In its first public hearing, a congressional panel airs previously unseen graphic footage related to last year's deadly U.S. Capitol riot.
It shows violent scuffles between supporters of former President Donald Trump and law enforcement outside the building. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hirro.
And I am Ricci Alagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
Philippine unemployment rate eased to 5.7%, translating into 2.76 million jobless Filipinos in April, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. The Philippines to continue taking a neutral stance on Russia-Ukraine conflict, according to President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s National Security Advisor. Russian leader Vladimir Putin says isolating Russia is impossible as Western countries impose tougher sanctions. A congressional panel probing last year's Capitol assault lays out former President Donald Trump's responsibility at the heart of the attempted coup. Incumbent President Joe Biden calls the rioters lawbreakers. And experience the immersive digital exhibit on the life of Vincent Van Gogh.
This exhibit starts with The unemployment rate in the country eased to 5.7% last April. Sharing the details is Mayan Corvera.
Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority show that jobless Filipinos reached 2.76 million in April, lower than the 2.93 million last January and 4.4 million in April 2021. The April 2022 unemployment rate is the lowest since the pandemic, which left 7.3 million Filipinos unemployed. National Statistician Undersecretary Dennis Mapa says the agriculture sector contributed to job creation due to harvest season.
Every year, marami tayong new members of the labor force, no? Nagdadagdag yan. At dahil tumataas din yung opportunity, kaya naghanap sila ng trabaho. But yun nga, while the rate slightly lower na lang, o sabi ko nga yung unemployment rate hindi significant. But if you look at the numbers kasi, marami talaga yung nag-participate sa labor force in terms of magnitude. Simply because population. Yung karamihan dito yung new entrants nga, yung sabi ko yung 15 to 24.
He added that wholesale and retail trade, such as motorcycle repair and sale of its spare parts, flourished. The recently concluded elections also provided jobs for Filipinos. Mapa says more than 45.63 million Filipinos are now employed.
Yung agriculture and forestry, in fact, in terms of number, ang agriculture and forestry ay nag-contribute ng 1.71 million na underemployed doon sa 6.4 million na na-report ko kanina. Ito ay sinundan ng wholesale and retail trade, repair motor vehicles and motorcycles na may 1.15 million. So normally ito yung dalawang subsectors na medyo malaki yung contribution nila sa underemployment.
According to NEDA Secretary Carl Chua, the number of job increased due to government assistance, the gradual resumption of face-to-face classes, and allowing 100% capacity for business establishment. He added that the government released 6.1 billion pesos to help the sectors affected by the continuing oil price hike under Pantawid Pasada program. The NEDA chief says they expect the unemployment data to go down once the school closed because of the pandemic become fully open. Mayan Corvera para Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Power distributor Meralco has announced higher electricity rates for June. In its advisory, Meralco says it will impose a 40-centavo increase per kilowatt as a result of a surge in generation charge. Meralco customers consuming 200 kilowatt hours per hour or per month will have an 80 peso increase in their monthly bill, while 199 pesos will be added to those consuming 500 kilowatt hours per month. Independent power producers and power supply providers raised their charges due to higher fuel costs. Gas power plants raised their charge by 8% as prices of liquid fuel also increased. Apart from that, the transmission costs, taxes, and other obligations in producing electricity have also gone up. Meralco will charge an additional 20 centavos for generation cost, which was previously deferred at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. It says more power hikes are expected as fuel costs continue to rise.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, is targeting to release the second tranche of fuel subsidies this June or July. LTFRB Executive Director Tina Cacion says they are preparing the documents to request the needed funding from the Department of Budget and Management. 5 billion pesos is earmarked by the government to fund the second tranche of the fuel subsidy, much higher than the 2.5 billion pesos allotted for the first tranche. Cacion hopes the additional subsidy will help the jeepney drivers affected by a series of oil price increases and the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier, jeepney drivers and operators have appealed to ease the requirements needed to qualify for the fuel subsidy.
The Department of Agriculture is preparing for a possible increase in the prices of imported rice. Agriculture Secretary William Dar sees the need for the country to have food sovereignty amid the lingering crisis. Dar says Vietnam and Thailand may increase the prices of their rice exports, reflecting a 6 peso per kilogram increase in the price of imported rice. The DA chief says his agency will distribute a 3 billion peso fertilizer subsidy for farmers, which he wants to raise to 6 billion pesos eventually.
For the last time, President Rodrigo Duterte will lead the commemoration of the 124th Philippine Independence Day at the Rizal Park in Luneta. Vic Somintak has the details.
President Rodrigo Duterte will personally attend the country's celebration of its 124th Independence Day on Sunday, June 12 at the Rizal Park in Luneta. This will be the last time Duterte will lead the commemoration of Independence Day, as his term will end at noon on June 30. This year's theme is Kalayaan 2022, Rise Towards the Challenge of a New Beginning. After the Independence Day rites, President Duterte will immediately proceed to the Port of Manila for the commissioning of the Philippine Coast Guard new ship, the BRP Melchora Aquino. The President is also set to visit Barangay Ogona in Valenzuela City to witness and lead the lowering of the first tunnel boring machine for the Metro Manila Subway Project and the inauguration of the Philippine Railways Institute Interim Simulator Center. Vic Somintak reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Diplomats from the UN, Sweden, Vatican City, and Ireland have paid a courtesy call on President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in his headquarters in Mandaluyong City. Find out the subjects discussed at these meetings with this report from Eden Santos.
As his formal inauguration nears, more diplomats pay a visit to President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. This Friday, the incoming president has met with United Nations Resident Coordinator in the Philippines, Gustavo Gonzalez, Sweden Ambassador Annika Thunberg, Vatican Ambassador Charles Brown, and Irish Ambassador William Carlos. In his courtesy call, Gonzalez said Marcos raised the importance of high-level accountability in the aspect of human rights. Gonzalez quoted Marcos as saying consultations were being held to ensure the best way of supporting the human rights agenda in the Philippines.
On human rights, my message was to, first of all, reiterate the support of the United Nations to all the efforts of the Philippines on the human rights agenda. We suggest that the gains that we have as part of the UN joint program, they have to be preserved, and we need to continue in enhancing accountability in terms of human rights and making sure that what we adopted as part of the Human Rights Council Resolution 4553, the 6 concerns of the High Commissioner, they are addressed.
Meanwhile, Thunberg said the campaign against illegal drugs was one of the topics discussed during her meeting with the incoming president. She added that Marcos was fully committed to continuing the war on drugs within the framework of the law.
We also touched upon political affairs and the importance of and the strong commitment that has been expressed by the president-elect to conduct the war on drugs within the framework of the law and with respect for human rights and with a focus on rehabilitation and socioeconomic development. Is something that is very much appreciated on my side, on my government side as well.
Marcos and Thunberg also discussed economic and financial policies as well as transnational crimes. This is Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is free to travel to the United States when he formally assumes the presidency. In a media roundtable, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman said the head of state is covered by diplomatic immunity and Marcos can visit the United States in his capacity as President of the Philippines. Marcos Jr. faces a contempt judgment in the U.S. regarding a human rights class suit. Sherman says the matter is something that needs to be discussed. She added that U.S. President Joe Biden is looking forward to working with Marcos in areas covered by the cooperation between the two countries, including health, energy, defense, and security. Coming right up, Philippines protests China swarming around disputed reef. U.S. Capitol riot probes weaves tale of lying Trump and raging mob in its first public hearing. These stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Nagbibigay ng ngiti at saya sa bawat kada all over the world. Tara na't ma-inspire at ma-amaze sa kwento ng mga bawat kada na nagwagi sa anumang hamon at pagsubok ng buhay. Itago na mga remote control at tumambay lang dito sa paborito niyong barkada sa umaga, ang Kada Umaga! Dahil kayo ang bida dito.
Lutong Daza with my Tita Sandy and my Tita Patty.
Malapit na ngayong Sabado, alas 10 ng umaga. Kita-kits!
Health is wealth, and wealth without health is worthless. Ngayong panahon ng pandemya, kinilalang mga bayani sa modernong panahon ng ating mga healthcare workers. The Sierra McKilling Health Corporation is one of the leading providers of high-quality, low-cost healthcare services, including eye care, laboratories, testing, and consultations. How do they stay up to date on current healthcare developments? How do they see the future of healthcare? What are their strategies to stay relevant in the healthcare sector? Our guests, Dr. Arnelin Marasigan Agila of Sierra McKilling Health Corporation and Attorney Arth June Aguilar Marasigan will answer.
Maraming realizations, maraming learnings na hindi pa pala enough yung ating kaalaman ngayon. At talaga kailangan tayo continuously, we have to really study.
Dapat maramdaman mo yung nararamdaman ng iba for you to be effective in what you're doing and what you want to impose or gawin sa kanila, di ba?
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. The Philippines, under its new leadership, will stay neutral in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Incoming National Security Advisor Clarita Carlos says the Philippines should also take advantage of its good relationship with Russia. Vin Pascua has the story.
The incoming Marcos administration will take a neutral position on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This was articulated by incoming National Security Advisor Clarita Carlos in a public forum. Carlos says the government can take advantage of Moscow's petroleum resources. She also noted that the country has a good relationship with Russia and they are also pivoting in the region.
We will take a neutral stance. Yun naman talaga ang ginawa natin from the beginning. And we have a very robust relationship with Russia. And Russia might be able to supply us with our much-needed oil and gas. They're also pivoting to our area. So, yes, we should take advantage of that.
Carlos' statement was made even after the Philippines, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, have condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Malacanang also calling for an immediate end to the unnecessary loss of lives.
We are very grateful for the strong support, appreciate very much the strong stand by the Philippines, having voted in favor of all the relevant UN General Assembly resolutions condemning Russia's aggression against Ukraine. The war against Ukraine is solely Russia's responsibility. Russia has conducted this massive and large-scale attack on independent Ukraine, and the socioeconomic consequences that have emanated from this war and this crisis are solely Russia's responsibility. We need to see a complete withdrawal from Russia, from Ukraine.
In her courtesy call with President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. this morning, Sweden Ambassador Annika Thunborg conveyed their message of thanks for the country's support in condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine at the UN General Assembly. This is Ven Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines has protested the illegal presence of over 100 Chinese boats around a disputed reef in the Flashpoint South China Sea, describing it as a source of regional instability. Manila and Beijing have long been locked in a dispute over parts of the South China Sea. China insists it has exclusive rights to most of the area, rejecting a 2016 International Tribunal ruling that its historical claims were without basis. The Department of Foreign Affairs said the Philippines calls on China to comply with its obligations under international laws, cease and desist from displaying illegal and irresponsible behavior, avoid further escalating tensions at sea, and immediately withdraw all of its vessels from Philippine maritime zones. The department did not disclose whether there had been a Chinese government response and whether the boats were still in the area. China's embassy in Manila did not respond to requests for comment. Manila says it has filed more than 300 diplomatic protests over Chinese actions in the disputed waters over the past 6 years. The Philippines also filed a separate protest last month over China's annual practice of declaring a fishing ban over areas beyond its legitimate maritime entitlements.
Amid attempts to isolate Moscow, President Vladimir Putin tells the West such efforts are futile. Mia Villa reports.
In response to tougher Western sanctions, Russian President Vladimir Putin says it is impossible to isolate the country. According to the leader, fencing Russia off from the outside is highly impossible.
Such country is Russia, and we are not going to be the ones who will build this kind of wall, this kind of fence around ourselves.
Putin also guarantees that Russia will never have a closed economy and that it will remain open to anyone who wants to talk trade with it. He says those who choose not to trade with Russia, on the other hand, will only rob themselves. Putin has also addressed countries and groups of countries that cannot make a sovereign decision. According to him, such colonies have no future as far as history is concerned. This is Mia Villa reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov urged Ukraine to abandon its militaristic rhetoric and stop delaying the process of exporting grain after his meeting with Armenian counterpart Ararat Mirzoyan in Yerevan. According to Lavrov, the West's arming Ukraine to the teeth is counterproductive. Kyiv should instead heed Western calls to stop slowing down the process of deblocking its ports. He also said that the West needs to realize that indulging such military sentiments won't do any good. The Russian minister then stressed that Moscow is ready to help conclude a peace treaty between Yerevan and Baku and has no doubt that final agreements will be reached on the normalization of their relations. Kyiv and its Western supporters continuously claim that by blocking Ukraine's Black Sea ports, Moscow is aggravating the global food crisis. But Russia has rejected such allegations, saying it guarantees protected passage for grain-carrying vessels. The country further claimed that the disruption stems from intensive mining of the shoreline by the Ukrainian army.
Russia may be getting more revenue from its fossil fuels now than shortly before its conflict with Ukraine, as global price increases offset the impact of Western efforts to restrict its sales. U.S. Energy Security Envoy Amos Hochstein was asked whether Moscow was receiving more money from its oil and gas trade compared to several months ago. He blatantly replied he could not deny that. The official's response was made during the Senate Subcommittee on Europe and Regional Security Cooperation's hearing. Hochstein previously served as the U.S. Energy Security Envoy. The U.S. and the EU agreed to ban imports of Russian oil and imposed escalating sanctions to penalize the country for conducting special military operations in Ukraine. However, several media reports claimed the sanctions hardly affected Moscow's energy trade so far. The Wall Street Journal reported that Russian oil shipments had grown by 300,000 barrels a day in April 2022. In mid-May, Bloomberg suggested that Moscow's oil revenues jumped by some 50% since the beginning of 2022. The Russian government also pointed to new customers in the Asia-Pacific region, which have started buying its crude.
A congressional panel investigating last year's mob assault on the U.S. Capitol laid out its case that former President Donald Trump and his claims of a stolen election were at the heart of what amounted to an attempted coup to remain in power. Republican Vice Chairwoman of the panel, Liz Cheney, opened her remarks saying that the former president summoned and assembled the mob and lit the flame of the U.S. Capitol attack.
On this point, there is no room for debate. Those who invaded our Capitol and battled law enforcement for hours were motivated by what President Trump had told them, that the election was stolen and that he was the rightful president. President Trump summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack.
The Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack.
Minutes earlier, Democratic Committee Chief Benny Thompson accused Trump of being at the center of the conspiracy, underscoring that the riot endangered American democracy.
I remember sharing. There are those in this audience who thirst for power but have no love or respect for what makes America great: devotion to the Constitution, allegiance to the rule of law, our shared journey to build a more perfect union.
Trump supporters stormed Congress on January 6 last year as lawmakers met to certify Joe Biden's election victory. Thompson said the rioters acted at the encouragement of Trump to block the formal transfer of power by lawmakers to Biden. The Democratic-led U.S. House committee opened the congressional inquiry by showing previously unseen graphic footage of the protesters clashing with the police. The panel also presented clips from interviews it conducted with members of Trump's inner circle. Meanwhile, residents of Washington, D.C. gathered to watch the highly anticipated first public hearing of Congress investigating last year's mob assault.
I think it's really important that we focus on these hearings that are happening because they are holding up democracy and the values that have been established for hundreds of years. I think that the riots on January 6th were one of the most violating things to our democracy that could have happened.
Following the hearing, Trump lashed out again on Truth Social and accused the congressional committee of bias and doubling down on his election fraud claims.
In a related news, U.S. President Joe Biden says the January 6 rioters are lawbreakers. Biden's comments came during a meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
And as I said when it was occurring and subsequent, I think it was a clear, flagrant violation of the Constitution. I think these guys and women broke the law, tried to turn around the result of an election. And there's a lot of questions, who's responsible, who's involved. I'm not going to make a judgment on that.
The congressional panel probing the 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol has promised it will tie the deadly violence to Donald Trump's attempts to overturn his election defeat.
An Israeli missile attack has hit several targets south of the Syrian capital, Damascus, wounding at least one civilian. Syrian Arab news agency reported that at 4:20 a.m., the Israeli enemy carried out an aerial aggression by firing a volley of missiles from the occupied Golan Heights. Syrian air defenses intercepted most of the missiles, but those that reached their target left at least one civilian wounded and caused material damage. According to the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the Israeli raids hit arms depots belonging to the Lebanese Shiite movement, Hezbollah, as well as other Iran-backed groups near Damascus airport. The Monitor said that at least 3 such positions were hit, leaving a number of people wounded. And an official at an Arab airline who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that an airport landing strip had been hit during the Israeli assault. The Israeli military continuously claims that the strikes are necessary to prevent its arch foe Iran from gaining a foothold on its doorstep.
In what has become an almost daily occurrence, another mass shooting has been reported in the United States. Police say 3 people were killed after a gunman opened fire at a factory in Smithburg, Maryland. A 4th person suffered critical injuries. The suspect then fled the scene. When police caught up with the suspect, gunfire was exchanged between an officer and the suspect. Both were wounded and are being treated for their injuries. There's no indication yet as to what started the incident.
Caught on camera, a man threw a 52-year-old woman onto the New York City subway tracks. Police says the attack was unprovoked. Here's Mia Villa to bring us the details.
A man has been arrested after throwing a woman onto the train tracks of a New York City subway station. CCTV footage shows the man physically lifting the woman and hurling her onto the tracks. Fortunately, fellow commuters helped her and she is now recovering in hospital. The 30-year-old suspect was arrested 2 days later after being recognized by an MTA worker from a wanted poster. Violence in New York City's vast subway system has been a growing concern of residents, with its mayor making public safety a focal point of his successful campaign last year. This is Mia Villa reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Malaysia to abolish mandatory death penalty in a move welcomed by rights campaigners. Thousands evacuated as wildfire rages in Spain. And a teenager admits stabbing girlfriend to death in France. We will deliver more stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Ready na ba kayo sa isa na namang oras ng feel-good bidahan? Tungayan natin ang Art for a Cause ng Ukrainian artist na si Arthur Selishev dito sa Bida sa Life. For tonight's Daddy Foodie featured, makakasama natin a very good friend of mine, Richard Gomez. Papalag ako sa kanya ng konti sa kung papugian lang ang pag-uusapan. Pero since magpapasiklam siya ng kanyang farm-to-table cooking, mukhang sa kanya na ang medalya. Para naman sa paboritong segment ng lahat, makakasama natin si Alfred Carlos Doña mamaya sa Be The Best. For this week's Daddy DIY, papaandaran tayo ng isang bagong internet sensation, mga sirang microwave ovens, emergency lamps, even remote-controlled cars, kayang-kaya niyang buhayin muli. Ako po ang inyong host, Aga Mulak, at ito ang Bida Kayo kay Aga.
May free taste po kayo? May free taste daw, tara! Wow, sarap!
At bago ang ulo ng mga balita, narito na ang ulam ko mamayang gabi, mga kaibigan. Ayan po, Carne Norte.
Do you have soft drinks?
Yes!
Soft drinks! Do you accept credit cards here?
Onibo Express Delivery po! Wala po, libre lang.
Wala kasi ako in-expect. Sino ba yung nagpadala daw? Wala kang number, di ba that gano'n?
Papirma
Siguro
na.
buksan nyo na lang para at least may witness ako.
Okay.
It's oh no! It's Hirro only!
It's B.O.
Sunnet 25!
Only, bro.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Malaysia's government says it has agreed to abolish the mandatory death penalty, with campaigners welcoming the move but cautioning that the country failed to deliver on previous vows to improve rights. Law Minister Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar said the cabinet had agreed to abolish mandatory capital punishment, but further study would be conducted on what sentences could be substituted for the death penalty. He said the decision on the matter showed the government's priority is to ensure the rights of all parties are protected and guaranteed. But Phil Robertson, Deputy Asia Director for Human Rights Watch, said before everyone starts cheering, they need to see Malaysia pass the actual legislative amendments and put such a pledge into effect. Wan Junaibi, on the other hand, did not indicate how long it would take for the parliament to make the changes. Instead, he said the process was not as simple as people would imagine it. A 14-year-old boy has admitted to killing his girlfriend, also 14, in eastern France. The girl's body was found near her former primary school in a village north of Lyon. The local prosecutor says the boy admitted stabbing the girl several times when they met Wednesday night. He gave no indication of his motive. Investigators believe the pair had recently broken up. The prosecutor says friends of the boy have said the lad made statements about wanting to kill someone, in particular his girlfriend.
Thousands of mostly Venezuelan migrants began receiving temporary Mexican visas as they continue their trek to the United States. The migrants had set up a temporary camp in the southern Mexican town of Huixtla, about 40 kilometers from where they began their journey. The visas will allow them to stay in Mexico for 30 days without fear of being deported. The caravan is made up of people fleeing poverty, violence, and political oppression. It's estimated that about 11,000 people are in the group. they are walking to the United States. And they are hoping to receive special treatment from the U.S., which does not recognize Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's 2018 election victory as legitimate.
The U.S. government, through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, has awarded millions in funding to cancer prevention and control organizations across the country. Elise Danielle reports.
3 national programs to prevent and control cancer have received funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC. The health agency announces its first year funding awards of $215 million in a 5-year, $1.1 billion investment. 86 unique recipients from state, local, tribal, and territorial public health organizations and academic institutions have received funding. According to the CDC, all states, the District of Columbia, 18 tribal organizations, 5 U.S. territories, and 3 freely associated states have been represented. Funded programs will demonstrate how proven strategies advance health equity and build capacity in cancer prevention and control. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra says cancer is known as a disease that we often diagnose too late, but thankfully there are a few ways to prevent it and tackle stark inequities across races, regions, and resources. The funds go to 3 national cancer programs, namely the National Breast and Cervical Cancer Early Detection Program, the National Comprehensive Cancer Control Program, and the National Program of Cancer Registries. Elise Danielle, Matanang Agila International, Washington, D.C. Trusted, connected, on point.
A wildfire in southern Spain has forced about 2,000 people from their homes. The blaze is chewing its way through a mountainous region. That area is bracing for a heat wave, with temperatures expected to rise above 40 degrees Celsius. About 1,000 people, many of them drafted, are battling the fire. Efforts are complicated because of strong winds, restricted visibility, and difficulty in accessing the steep and mountainous area. 3 firefighters have been injured while trying to tame the blaze.
A diverse group of investors, including Silicon Valley heavy hitters, is reportedly helping fund Elon Musk's $44 billion bid to buy Twitter. Mia Villa will tell us more about one of them.
Elon Musk's Twitter takeover bid has apparently been backed by big names and Silicon Valley mainstays. The list includes a Dubai investment firm whose assets have surged to more than $5 billion under secretive founder Alexander Tamas. VOA Capital committed to $700 million to finance the bid for the social network. Tamas is the founder of data science company Synaptic and has supported artificial intelligence research at Oxford's Future of Humanity Institute. Reports say he shares Musk's interest in promoting free speech. In a 2019 interview, Tamas warned that allowing private companies to determine what is acceptable free speech would actually be dangerous. This is Mia Villa reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Meta has scrapped the development of a smartwatch with dual cameras, shifting its attention to other devices for the wrist. The tech firm cited costs and technological advances or challenges as reasons for halting its own line of smartwatches. During its April earnings call, Meta Platforms executives said annual expenses would be cut by $3 billion this year, given the broader business slowdown. A leaked photo of the prototype device includes dual cameras. One camera was located below the display and the other on the backside. According to Bloomberg, it was originally set for a spring 2023 launch at a price point of $349. The device, which was in development for 2 years, was also designed to include several common smartwatch features such as music playback, activity tracking, and messaging. Despite the dual-camera smartwatch being scrapped, Meta continues to work on multiple other wrist devices.
In business news, the largest audio streaming platform in the world, Spotify, announces plans to become even larger. Our New York correspondent Bobby Soriano has the details.
Audio streaming platform Spotify has announced that it is aiming to have 1 billion users by 2030, as well as an annual revenue of $100 billion in a decade. Currently, the platform has 422 million users as of the end of Q1 2022, making it by far the world's most frequented platform dedicated to audio streaming. Co-founder and CEO Daniel Ek, speaking at an Investor Day event here in New York, said the ambitious goal could be achieved in part through an expansion of Spotify's portfolio of podcasts and audiobooks, while making the platform a one-stop shop for content creators. The Sweden-based New York-listed company reported $10.9 billion in revenue for 2021, meaning it would need a nearly tenfold increase to hit the mark set out by its CEO. In recent quarters, the online audio platform, now present in 183 countries and territories, has fluctuated between a modestly positive and slightly negative operating margin. Spotify in the past has invested more than $1 billion in acquiring notable podcasters, as well as building a fully integrated podcast platform, from production to advertising management, to make it the world leader in the sector. Its investment strategy has paid off, with the platform now having exclusive rights to the largest podcast in the world, The Joe Rogan Experience. Although host Joe Rogan has been in the news recently regarding inflammatory racial remarks and controversial opinions, Mr. Rogan continues to command an average listener count of 11 million users per episode. Bobby Soriano, Matanang Agila International, New York, New York. Trusted, connected, on point.
Next up, Golden State star Stephen Curry confirms he will play Game 4 of the NBA Finals despite his foot injury. Internationally acclaimed Filipino designer John Blaza unveils his latest creations in California. And World of Vincent Van Gogh explored through an immersive exhibit. Catch these stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
I am Ria Atayde at napakasarap kumain at makibanding dito sa Lutong Daza.
Malapit na! Ngayong Sabado, alas 10 ng umaga. Kita-kits!
Ang sarap talaga makibanding dito sa
Lutong Daza. Malapit na! Ngayong Sabado, alas 10 ng umaga. Kita-kits!
Malapit na tayong gumiling sa Lutong Daza.
Malapit na! Ngayong Sabado, alas 10 ng umaga. Kita-kits!
Good news sa lahat ng mahilig magluto at kumain.
May bago at katakam-takam na cooking show dito lamang sa Net25. Ako si Patpi Daza.
Ako naman si Sandy Daza.
Samahan niyo kaming magpinsan dito sa Lutong Daza.
Bukod sa masarap at abot kaya na recipes, masarap ang kwentuhan at halakhakan dito.
At syempre, laging may special celebrity guest. Abangan sa Sabado, June 11, 10 a.m.
Lutong Daza
sa Net25.
Gina G Coffee. Wow! Nasa kabto! Cut! Rep! Pagsabihan mo naman to!
Bakit?
Eh, dinagdepensahan ako eh.
Oh, maganda naman depensa niya.
Ayun na nga eh, kakampi ko yan eh.
Eh, kaya niya yan! Nakabuhan yan!
A sweet little bunny, Miffy. A smart little bunny, Miffy. A cute little bunny, Miffy. It always feels sunny with Miffy.
Sundays at 10 a.m. dito lang sa Net25.
You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. Golden State star Stephen Curry was empathic in confirming he'd play Game 4 of the NBA Finals despite suffering a foot injury in the Warriors' Game 3 loss to the Boston Celtics.
Obviously, be some pain, but I'll be all right. Figure out how it feels tomorrow and get ready for Friday.
During the team's practice, Curry repeated that he was going to play, and that's all he knows right now. Curry was among the Warriors starters who sat out the last few minutes with Boston on the way to a convincing 116-100 score. The Warriors trail 8-2-1 in the best-of-7 championship series, heading into Game 4 at Boston's TD Garden.
Alfonso Davis celebrated his return to international duty with 2 goals as World Cup-bound Canada thrashed Curacao 4-0 in the CONCACAF Nations League. The Bayern Munich star missed Canada's last 6 matches after developing symptoms of myocarditis and inflammation of the heart after COVID-19. The flying fullback converted a penalty in the 27th minute to open the scoring for Canada in Vancouver after he was brought down in the box by Curacao defender Hurrien Gari. Davis added his second in the 71st minute, a tap-in after a ball cut back into the box by Ricci to make it 3-0. The victory and Davis's seamless return will be a boost for John Herdman's Canada, who were playing for the first time since locking up their first World Cup berth in 36 years.
When visiting museums and galleries, our experience is traditionally confined to looking at a canvas on the wall. But that has now all changed thanks to the Immersive Van Gogh exhibit. Our correspondent, Eribel Celestino from the United Kingdom, will show us what it's all about. Eribel.
I'm Arabelle Celestino, and right now I'm here at the Van Gogh Immersive Experience. Join me as I explore the works, life, and soul of one of the most famous artists in a whole new, exciting way.
Vincent van Gogh was a Dutch post-impressionist painter. He lived from 1853 to 1890. A few of his most famous works are Sunflowers and The Starry Night. Van Gogh's work only gained popularity after his death, and with this immersive digital exhibit, many more people started being interested in his work. This exhibit starts with a gallery where prints of his paintings were displayed. There was a video presentation to give an insight into his life and works, and they also recreated Van Gogh's room. It then proceeds with an interactive drawing area where people get to color the prints of his paintings and hang on the wall their own versions. The following room was the virtual reality room, where you experience going inside his paintings and walking through them. It was interactive on a whole new level. You got to live inside his paintings even for just a short time. Last but not the least, the immersive room, a 360-degree audiovisual presentation where you step into his works and become part of them too.
The Van Gogh Immersive Experience was truly worth a visit. I invite you to literally step into the mind and works of Vincent van Gogh through this incredibly mesmerizing exhibit. I'm Arabelle Celestino for Mata ng Agila, trusted, connected, on point.
Now, from sizzling meat dishes to plant-based inspired creations, the Rose Bowl Foodie Land presents a wide assortment of food, drinks, and desserts to satisfy adventurous taste buds. In Pasadena, we have Eva Basaliaje with a story.
It's time to get your foodie on at Foodie Land in Pasadena, California. At this Asian-inspired night market, guests can easily put together a full-course meal with appetizers, main dishes, desserts, and refreshing drinks, all in ample supply. Though depending on which vendor happens to strike your fancy, the order of how one enjoys their foodie adventure doesn't necessarily need to follow any particular sequence.
We have our nacho onion bomb or the lobster onion bomb. It's a cheesy lobster sauce. So it's obviously cheese and some lobster and some secret species, spices.
So it's a special recipe for us, the flour mix, and it's floured and deep fried, and that's what you're trying.
Our energy together works perfectly, and I know we've been doing this for like maybe a month, and I love it.
You can put energy into something and it can bring some happiness to somebody's day. I mean, that also brings happiness to my day. So if we're bringing you happiness, you're bringing us happiness. That just seems like what we're here on this earth for.
Our food is fresh, different, and we hope that it'll make your taste buds really happy.
This is our ginger chicken with 1 scoop of red rice, 1 scoop of white rice, and this is our tofu galiguan, which is like a ceviche. This is our popcorn chicken, our spicy popcorn chicken. This is our vegan mock chicken drumsticks or drumettes. This is our Korean barbecue chicken. This one is our ginger chicken. Ultimate plate. This is our 2 scoops of rice, the chicken, the beef, blanket style, the chicken galiguan, and the vegetables. This is our big dino beef rib.
We're islanders and we want people to be happy. When they see big food, it makes you happy.
Most of our popular waters that we have would be mango, pineapple, cucumber lemonade, which is one of the most popular ones actually. And I like to say also the strawberry milk, because 2 of them are based off dairy and then the other 2 are just agua fresca based off fruit. I mean, it's very important to be like extremely friendly with the customers that we have, especially when they don't know what to decide upon. I personally give them a different opinion from everybody else, but either way, like another opinion from another person is always helpful.
What we're serving are like the cinnamon rolls. So it's a Filipino-American fusion cinnamon roll. So with childhood favorite, flavors that we enjoyed as a kid. I was born and raised in the Philippines, so I grew up eating these flavors. And then my wife is, she's a Filipino-American. She grew up here, so we kind of combined both ideas. I told her I was growing up eating yema. I was growing up eating the champorado. So she incorporated a lot of these flavors in her baking in the cinnamon rolls. So yeah, so favorites are like the ube overload, yema, and also our champorado and pandan also. It's still working on the consistency of the recipe, but it has become more moist, fluffy, and really soft to enjoy. So, but everyone enjoys the idea that it's a good size serving. And then the cinnamon rolls, I think everyone is very accustomed to here in the States, so they really appreciate that. And then now they're able to really appreciate the richness of the Filipino culture with the flavors that we add on top.
When visiting the Foodie Land night market, attendees can expect tons of good eats, lots of friendly people, and plenty of good vibes. Eva Pasayaje, Matanang Agila International, Pasadena, California. Trusted, connected, on point.
That got me hungry. From Pasadena, we now move to Beverly Hills. Award-winning international fashion designer John Blaza unveils his latest creations. A captivated audience immersed themselves in an evening of high fashion and fine music. Alin Basalyahe reports.
In Beverly Hills, California, the Power of Strings, a night of music and fashion, presents a collaboration of couture, culture, and music, celebrating the work of Nicole Santos and the creations of international designer John Blaza.
Every work I do, I make sure that it benefits a lot of people. I give opportunity to models, to photographer, anyone in the industry who want to showcase their talent. I want to give them opportunity to feature their expertise through my show.
Once in a lifetime experience, of course. John is a world-class designer, and his collections are infused with environment-friendly materials. So that's what makes it a big difference in this in this world, we need to be environment friendly.
John de Blaza's collection is stunning, and of course, you feel proud of his designs because it's all like inspired by the Filipino culture. So I'm excited as a Filipino here in a foreign land, showing our culture.
I'm becoming more and more of a model every time I attend a fashion show.
I'm open to see what this is my first event, a fashion event, so I'm very interested about how everything's gonna be. I like fashion, I like design, so hopefully we'll get some interesting looks tonight.
This place is iconic. There's been a lot of history here, a lot of stuff have come here, a lot of events have come here. I've been here many times before, but not for a fashion event. So this is what interested me, was coming here for something like this was awesome.
I think fashion is important because it's also a story that you're telling through clothes. I feel like you can tell a lot by who a person is by what they wear. This outfit, by the way, is clean. I am a big fan of that. And that's an example right there.
Oh man, fashion and music definitely go together because it's a part of it, you know, it tells a story, and it really helps with the process of the storytelling. You know, you have to have images to portray a story. I'm such a huge fashion girl. I love it. I'm wearing a vintage gown. I love vintage fashion, and I'm very excited to see John de Blaza's collection and Nicole Santos's collection too.
We are supporting, of course, the Filipino culture, especially during this time when we are seeing a rising incidence of anti-Asian hate crimes. And I think this is one way of raising awareness about the beauty of our culture through the beauty of our ladies, the beauty of our dresses, the beauty of the creations of Filipino designers.
Empowers the beauty in all of us. So to celebrate the beauty and song and everything beautiful, that's what we want to do. We want to surround ourselves with all things beautiful.
I'm expecting to see a lot of fashion that relates to the Filipino culture, and also maybe some unique fashion that we might have not seen before, and it's gonna, like she said, empower us to be surrounded by people who are in the fashion industry.
John de Blaza, so I was a part of his one of his fashion shows way back at the Celebrity Center in Hollywood, probably 5 years ago, and it was such a beautiful, beautiful night, and I'm so happy to be here to be able to support him again. And I heard it's like his finale show, so this is really special for John de Blaza.
They have to watch out for my final bow. It's going to be a grand show. It's going to be held in the Philippines, and I'm aiming to do it at the National Museum of Natural History. Hopefully, it's going to be in September 23, 2023.
As everyone knows, threads is the slang term for clothing. And at this event, we discovered that nice threads combined with the power of strings can make fashionable music together. Alan Basuyahe, Mata ng Agila International, Beverly Hills, California. Trusted, connected, on point.
Now let's learn about important events from this day in history. In 1720, Mrs. Clements of England marketed the first ever paste-style mustard. She found a way to mill mustard seeds into fine flour, which became the standard method of processing the seeds and turning them into a condiment and spice. In 1988, the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Act was signed into law. Covering all public and private agricultural lands, it provides for the redistribution of land to landless Filipino farmers and farm workers. And in 2003, the Spirit rover was launched, beginning NASA's Mars exploration rover mission. At the time, it took the highest quality of photos taken on another planet. Among its myriad discoveries, Spirit found evidence that Mars was much wetter than it is today and helped scientists better understand the Martian wind.
And now to start your weekend, here's a quote from American writer Janet Rallison. Happiness does not come from achievements or money or any sort of treasure. Happiness is a frame of mind, not a destination. It's appreciating what you've got and building relationships with those around you. Beautiful message there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hirro.
And I am Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.